even if you want to put it in a more mechanical form, what does this mean? Okay, well, the Hebrew word naked is used in a physical form, which means a person's physically naked. Okay. However, because we're issuing an issue of the word davar, which describes the nakedness, it's referring to a issue. What is the issue? Well, this is where people go into the question, and this is where we find in the Brit Hadashah, the question brought up with regard to one of the Pharisees who said, can I divorce my wife for anything, any reason? And why was that? Because if I utilize the word davar as meaning a matter, okay, then here the concept is the word arva, which is the word arvat here. I have to define what is arvat, okay? Well, the Torah tells us one time that the word arvat is used in a physical form. That's physical nudity, not having any physical clothing, all right? That's one form of arvat. There's another form by which the Torah says, if the Kohanim were to go up on steps on the altar, the Bible says that he is not to have his garment move up because it would expose his nakedness, okay? And in that, we would look at this and say, okay, that's the same thing we find with regard to physical nakedness. But then we find there's another passage in the Torah which talks about nakedness, but it's not physical. It's not referring to a physical status. That's what we find in Bereshit, when it says, for example, that the man and the woman, when their eyes were open, they knew they were naked. Okay? But if we go backwards, you say, wait a second here. Earlier it said they were naked and they were not ashamed, but why is it all of a sudden now they see that they're naked? Because the nakedness had nothing to do with the physical state of being. Okay? It had to do with the fact of a perceptional state, something that lacked perceptionally in the mind. Okay? That's one aspect. Another aspect we find that the word arva is used, nakedness. Arva is also used in regard to not having mitzvot, not keeping the commandments. And that if we don't keep the commandments, it's like a form of nakedness. It's like being stripped bare of your physical life, by which you lack the spiritual properties by which clothes you, which is the keeping of God's Torah. And so what happens? They see the word ervat, and they translate it based upon that concept. So they said, well, if the word is davar matter, then we're taking that this, what if the matter is just she doesn't keep Torah? And therefore, in this case, can a man divorce his wife if she doesn't keep Torah? And that was the question, okay? Any reason, because in this case it could be anything. It could be immorality, or it could be just the fact of not keeping Shabbat, or it could be the fact of, she is not nice to you, or, she's not compassionate to you, and can we divorce, okay? And therefore, that is how this is translated in that concept with that question there. When we talk about the issue of morality, okay, issues of the sexual state by which you can look at the word aravat, physical nakedness, a matter of physical nakedness by which in this case it's referring to the moral conduct of how the person's acting. And so therefore, this could also be the way you could look at this word. So it's important to understand that when we're looking at now constructs, we have to understand the words individually. We definitely need to understand the words individually. And we need to understand the absolute. And we need to ask, is it a definite or is it indefinite in its state? Okay? And this is how we're going to be looking at noun constructs. Now, to make the matter short, Mashiach Yehoshua teaches us in the Brit Hadashah that you cannot divorce your wife. Why? Because really, it's only because of your hardened heart you don't want to keep Torah and keep your wife happy and keep your marriage going. And it's probably because you just have bitterness in your heart and you don't want to function properly, that's why you're not getting along in the home. And so the Torah tells us and stuff that it's a matter of issues by which we have to understand that when a man doesn't find favor in his wife, what's the issue? Is it because she's not keeping Torah? Is it because she's acting immodest? Okay? These are the things that we find that's all brought into this understanding. That's why we have to understand the word aravat, and we have to understand it based upon all the contextual places by which we could utilize the word aravah in Hebrew to understand the meaning of the word, and how we can also understand there could be possible more than just one meaning of what a noun construct can mean. And that just gives you a little insight to learning about noun constructs in relationship to this matter. Okay? We are done here with the noun construct. Now let's move on to more important things as well. So, now we're going to be talking about the relative pronoun asher. Asher is a relative pronoun, okay? What do relative pronouns do? Okay, well, relative pronouns they like to relate information about, okay? So, Devar Hanavi, the word of the prophet, asher, which, okay? So, which what, okay? The next thing we find is haya, okay? There's only two forms of what you're going to find, okay, with regard to verbs, okay? And this is the correct form. When you're utilizing the relative pronoun, okay? Trying to speak tongue-tied, it's okay. The relative pronoun, when you're using the word asher, you're going to only be using two forms. Past or the future, okay? There's the only words you're going to be used. So if I was to use this in the future, all right, then that would mean that my haya would be yihyeh, okay? Those are the only forms we're going to ever use in front of asher, okay? Because present tense has their own form by which they utilize in front of the present tense verbs, okay? So that's a little hint to give you an understanding. If you see the word asher, you're going to predominantly see if your verb is next, it's going to be past or future. So that kind of gives you a little hint there, okay? So let's understand about the word haya. Well, if you don't, or if you haven't, go to my website, download the actual thing that says special verb charts, and you'll find haya in that chart. It's special. And why is it so special? Because it has a hey in the front and a hey at the end. Okay, that's why it's so special. It has to have its own verb pointing for vowels, and it's not going to function under the regular Paul charts. Okay, so how do we need to understand about haya? Haya is a verb that deals with time. Okay, that means it's used in place of what we would say was or is or will be, okay? It also has a meaning which means to happen. That means like when something came about. Now I want you to understand there's a difference between this verb and the other verb. If you ever come across the verb kara, it does not equal haya, okay? Kara means to happen. It's like an event that transpires upon something, okay? This happening has to do with something that happens within a time, okay? And I'll give you an expression of this, okay? When he says Devar Hanavi, the word of the prophet, Asher Haya, which happened, it's like something that fell upon him all of a sudden out of nowhere, okay, for the prophet, okay? This word is only going to express the issue of something that's happening with regard to an event, okay? And this is what happened upon the person when these events transpired. You're not going to use the word haya. You're not going to use that verb, okay? You'll use the word kara, okay? So happen has to do with a concept of time, okay? Where this happen has to do with more of a concept of an event. Okay, you follow me? Time, event. Time, event. All right. So, haya. We know haya is going to be defined by what? How do we know what kind of verb haya is? Well, we have two things we need to understand. In the Pa'al chart, normally our Pa'al verbs are going to be kamatz, patach, okay? However, we have two forms by which this is not going to be so. Any verb that ends with an aleph and any verb that ends with a hey, we're going to vowelize it with kamatz, kamatz. Let's give you a good example of this, okay? Kaf, resh, ein. Aleph, excuse me. Kara. Kaf, resh, aleph. Aleph and hey are verbs, endings, and they're letters that absorb sound, okay? And so they take in the sound rather than ending the sound, okay? If we want to look, for example, at like the verb karav. Rav. We see the hits and stops, and then the guttural, not the guttural, but the actual vet sound is made. Karav. Okay? So it stops. The noun stops. The sound of the vowel stops when we get to the consonant. However, when we're talking about the letters aleph and hey, they are like absorbers. They receive the sound and the sound continues forward. So if we put, for example, the verb bana, you hear the sound goes into the hey. Kara, you hear the sound goes into the aleph. So aleph and hey are sound absorbers, okay? And so verbs that have the double kamatz is going to indicate that we either have a hey verb or we have an aleph verb ending. In this case, obviously, we have a hey verb ending. So therefore, in this case, we know that we have to classify this not only as a special, because this verb requires its own specific chart, but also this is classified under the hey ending verbs. And this is important because when we're looking at verbs and we're understanding the verb issues, we have to remember if we see a hey in the third root, we know that this is going to be the hey verb classification. So that means I'll be looking for the chart that's called the third hey, okay? Whether it's PL, PAL, doesn't matter. We're looking for the third hey chart if we're looking for that specific verb. Alright? So here, we would say here, happened, because it's past tense. Okay? Happened. What is this expressing when we see the fact of the Dawar Hanavi, the word of the prophet, Asher Haya, which happened? It's expressing the fact that this prophet, alright, or the words of the prophet, I should say, that it was something that transpired in a certain moment in time, okay? And that's what this is expressing grammatically, and that's what it's expressing of how we need to think about it, okay? So you can find different ways of expressing this in translation, and that's why you can see there's a kind of a freedom to interpret the fact of how this is, so that the information of what we're seeing here is somehow being transmitted over into a well-received and well-understood translation that a person will go, oh, okay, I know what's being said, okay? And that's what we're doing. We're translating something in order to give the correct interpretational form by which we're trying to take this concept and put it into something that somebody can receive and understand. Next we have is the word L. And what is L? L is a preposition. And what do prepositions do? Prepositions are elements of a sentence, they're words in a sentence that do what? They connect different elements of the sentence together by which they bridge to other parts of the sentence to bring them together, okay? which what? Which happened L unto. Now we have to remember the word L also is the inseparable preposition. And inseparable prepositions are going to have what? Remember, we talked about the inseparable prepositions. The common thing we're going to be looking for is either A, the noun is going to be a proper noun, okay? B, the noun is going to be a one that has the definite article. C, we're looking for a noun that has a pronoun ending, which is going to be the possessive pronoun ending, or we're looking for an indefinite noun. So, knowing the fact that after L, the preposition, I have these possibilities, if I see nothing attached to my preposition, I know that I'm going to have either it's a proper noun, the article that's definite is going to be attached to a noun, the proper noun ending, which is the the pronoun ending, which is possessive, or the indefinite article, or the indefinite state of a noun. So therefore, let's look at what we have here. Here we can see we have the hey article. So we know that follows into the category of the article of definite state, by which is attached to a noun. And here we know that because this is an aleph, the dagesh cannot be visible, therefore this has to be a kamatz instead. And therefore we know that the kamatz is only put there because the dagesh is not able to be received by the actual consonant itself. And so lastly we have the word anashim. Anashim, what do we have to look for? Well, here I see the yud and the mem. The yud and the mem is always going to be the plural state for the masculine form. Now, remember, we did talk about the fact of, and I think we did in this one, but if not, if you go to my noun videos that I have listed on the website, you can actually check out all of the different possible states by which the yud mem can be utilized. I'm going to give you a hint with regard to this, that the yud mem doesn't necessarily mean the noun is masculine. The nouns can be feminine at times, but having the masculine ending, but this is a very few number of nouns that carry this, and you kind of have to memorize the noun state to know whether or not this is the one we're talking about. In this case, we're talking about a masculine noun. And so here we see ha, the, anashim, men. We know this is plural, so we know it's talking about more than one. And we know at the end we're going to place this as the, and then of course men, period, at the end. Okay? And this is just important to go through and memorize and to look at. And I just want to go over some of the things that we're seeing here, just to remember the fact that, I could put any noun in this place here. Remember, if this is a proper noun, I could put David, I could put Moshe, I could put whatever noun I want to here that is a proper noun, as long as the context is going to obviously make sense, all right? And with relationship to a noun with the definite article, I can use any noun with the definite article here. I could put any noun by itself without the definite article, and therefore it's an indefinite noun, okay? Now lastly, we're going to talk about this little guy here. What is this dash? Well, this dash has no need for you to absolutely memorize in fullness, but we will talk about it. This dash is called a makef. A makef is a dash that's telling you that this preposition has a relationship with this, which is the object of the preposition. Or we can call this whole thing from here to here the prepositional phrase. Okay? So el ha'anashim is our prepositional phrase, and this is how grammatically you can break this apart and at least understand how this thing is being structured. Alright? So this is the part by which, when we're looking at this, we see the fact that we have the preposition. The preposition's talking about to or unto. We have a definite article, which tells me it's definite, so we're putting the in front of it. And then lastly, we're translating the actual noun here. Now, since I've already gone over all of the different noun constructs and stuff, you know, we've finished the sentence here. We've finished looking at the grammatical elements that are being spoken of here. I just want to make sure I've gotten everything covered that needs to be covered into regard to here. In here, I'm going to write the name because it's definitely important to understand this. In the book, you're going to see the word Hosea, okay? Hosea, all right? So Hosea is a name, all right? And you're going to see that there is a patach underneath here. Okay, this patach is very important because for an ayin, it's not going to really make much of a differentiation. But if we were using, for example, a chet, such as if I was writing the word noach, okay? This is what's called a furtive patach. What does this mean? It means that I'm going to reverse the order. Normally, when we read, we go consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant. Okay? That's the order by which we speak it and by which we pronounce the letters. Here, it's consonant, vowel, and then are we thinking what? Consonant, vowel? No. Here, when we see a chet or an ayin at the end, we're going to go to vowel first, and then we're going to pronounce the consonant. And so this is an important thing to understand, and this is called a furtive patach, and that's because what we're doing is we're going to be pronouncing the patach before we pronounce the actual guttural. And this is only going to affect the chet ending noun, so don't worry so much about it, but it's important to know because if you want to be speaking the words correctly and stuff, you have to know these different things so that you can utilize this. So when you go to finish your lesson, you're going to know that you're going to have to identify what nouns are definite, what nouns are indefinite, and we've already given you a good thing to utilize how to identify this. But if you need some more extra help, go to my video where you can look at nouns, definite and indefinite, and you can also look at the noun video that goes over all the nouns with the pronoun endings and give you an idea of how nouns look like with their pronoun endings and what you do, as it will help you also even work with the actual ending part of this part that you're going to be using, which is part of the lesson plan by which you have to finish up. Basically, it's about, I don't know, maybe 25, I think, words which you have to go through and you're going to define, is this definite, is this indefinite, and what is this helping you with? Well, it's basically saying to you, I'm taking words, all right, and let's say I don't even know what the words mean. It doesn't matter if I don't know what the words mean. What I need to know is, can I identify the words, okay? So if I'm sitting here and I'm saying, yep, definite, definite, then I'm learning how to identify an aspect by which I may not know the noun, but at least I know that this is a definite noun, okay? And remember, one thing I also learned about definite nouns is, what are definite nouns always going to be placed? Well, definite nouns are always going to be placed after two things. And remember this rule, and you could know it by heart how hardcore this rule is going to work for you, okay? We'll give you three, but I'm going to give you two because these two are the main ones, okay? And this is a two, okay? If I have a definite noun, like the definite article here, what should I be looking for, okay? I should be looking for if this is going to be in front of a preposition or if it's going to be in front of a verb, okay? The third one is going to be if it's going to be standing in front of the definite direct object marker, at, by which we have not really gotten to yet. but we will in our future lessons. Hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we'll see you next time as you learn more of Biblical Hebrew on these video lessons.